this has been brought up, sort of wondered is how you would go about implementing that. Like if that was decided that was going to be a course of action, either way, whether it be a black ethno state or a white ethno state, what do you do about the people that aren't going to be willing to leave on their own fruition?
What I encourage personally is voluntary moving to an area that's already pretty much white and just make it whiter and whiter with voluntary population movements. And at the end, at the time of separation from the US or from another country or from Europe, if we're talking about a European country, then at the time of separation, you say, all right, there's still 1% black people left in our nation. We give you the choice. You can stay there and we're going to give you the same rights. But don't expect us to be welcoming more black people through our immigration laws. We made this country white. You can still live with us. We will respect your rights. We're not going to bother you. We're not going to put you on a train, but it's going to be a white country that you live in.
Yeah, no, I get the idea of a sovereign nation, right? I mean, Indians are a sovereign nation. Their land is their own on tribalistic lands and things we've designated from them. I get the concept, but Syko, how do you think we have a society? Is it even possible to have an integrated society where you have separation but equality? Talk about the Jim Crow
Steve,
laws,
I hate to stop you.
Right?
I hate to stop you there, Steve. Before you ask that, though, I'm interested to hear what you would do about the people that don't want to leave. Like if you didn't get it down to like a certain percentage, what happens to the people that refuse to just leave their home or wherever they were?
Well, they don't have to leave, and I agree with what he was saying. You pretty much just flood the state, like you get a certain area that everybody agree upon. You kind of just flood it, and you kind of just it's nothing illegal about it or anything. Everybody just moved there, and if people want to stay, they can stay, but eventually nature is going to run its course, and what's going to happen is people are going to eventually, like if we all flood, let's say all black people flood Florida, right? Let's just say Florida, for instance, and we all just flood Florida and everything. By nature, what's going to happen is eventually the white people that live there is going to start feeling uncomfortable being there, and they're going to eventually start going other places anyway. Like we don't have to kick anybody out. They will just, nature's just going to run its course, so they're going to go. Even if that generation don't leave, the future generation is going to eventually pick up and move.
Well, we've seen that
demonstrated before in Detroit.
Neither of you, I just want to be clear to make sure this is clear. Neither of you are advocating that it would get to a point where any sort of violence or forced removal would be necessary, right?
No, I'm not.
I'm not advocating for it. Yeah, I'm not advocating for it, but I recognize there may be situations in a civil war where if we're reacting, we might have to self-defend. But under no aggression, I would not advocate for aggression.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. It would be a natural end result of certain things. I think you mentioned not Chicago, but
Detroit.
Detroit, thank you for Michigan. But there's a few other places.
On my show, we had a show called What's to Come on my channel, and we've gone through 8 locations in the world that have turned from mixed population to entirely black, and it's feasible. It happens. People feel so pushed by the criminality that increases around them that they leave.
Yeah, I mean, well, down in my area, Watts, Compton area, those kind of things, same kind of situations. But Syko, let me ask you, go back to real quick to the Jim Crow laws. How would you handle that? I don't think that we can have separation and equality in the same society. I don't think they mix together. I think that if you want to have an ethno state and people want to live somewhere else, then that's feasible. That's a different society at that time. But with the Jim Crow laws, they weren't equal, clearly. I mean, they were forced to be separated. They had to sit when they're told to be sit and things like that. So how would you have changed that to have this integration and have the equality by eliminating these laws? How would you have done it?
Well, again, we should have been. I was okay with us being separate, but we wasn't equal. That was the problem. Again, I think reparations at that time, which we should have been pushing for at that time, which we didn't. That alone, I think at that moment would have helped our situation out tremendously, and I think we would be in a much better spot today if that's what we actually fought for. But we actually fought for the wrong things, I think. We was fighting for inclusiveness, and I thought that was a mistake because it didn't cost this country anything to just include us and stuff. It didn't cost them anything. That's why it was so quick to get signed off on it, because right then and there, they felt like to them, that was them giving us reparations, and that was not the case at all.
So how would you eliminate these laws then? I mean, let's say you wanted separation, but you wanted to sit where you wanted to be sit, but you wanted to have a designated area, but that wasn't forced to be a designated area, like say at a counter for a dining counter.
We wanted a chance to build up. We wanted a chance to build up our own communities without any harassment from outside forces, i.e., the Klan and other groups that was put in place to try to keep us down throughout the Jim Crow South. Because again, I gave examples of whole towns and cities being destroyed. That was pretty much black cities that was flourishing. We wanted that terrorism to end for the most part, but again, we was fighting for the wrong thing. If we could just got it to where we was equal and not been so focused on trying to be a part of a society that a huge portion of the society wanted nothing to do with us, I think we would have been again in a better position. But because all we wanted was just fair laws, just so people so we could be protected under this Constitution, where we're allowed to do what we do without being harassed. And instead, we just figured, well, we get included in everything that will kill everything that's going on, and that would end racism. And as you can see, racism did not end; it's still going on to this day. So that was a mistake in hindsight. In the time, they thought they was doing the right thing, but in hindsight, I think it was a big mistake.
This is really, this is really difficult to hear. So you know what I mean? Like, they just sound so. Off, I guess, is the right word, because you're not used to hear. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much like history with the civil rights movement. People, giving their life up for that very thing to be included. And I think personally, that's important. I think that you do society a disservice when you separate like that, because both sides, I think, have so much to offer each other. And I know we're not going to agree on that, but that's just my take on it. Steve, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I find it difficult to have an integrated society when you have people trying to even be self-segregated. I saw a picture the other day, it wasn't a very old picture, but it was a picture of a classroom, had to be around 2nd, 3rd grade, and had all white kids on one side and all black kids on the other side. And it wasn't that it was imposed. It was just, people sitting where they want to sit. But it was really disconcerting to me. But, my last question is basically...
real quick, but de facto segregation is already happening. I mean, we already have segregation. It's just not mandated. Right.
It's but de facto segregation to me still is a little disconcerting. But my last question is, on Psycho, you're not advocating the position that any one race is better than another. I think you've already stated that. And Jeff, you don't advocate it as well? You don't think that one race is in any way superior to the other, whether it be genetically, ethically? I mean, do you think there's a differentiation between these races, such as they are equal in some standard? Or do you think that, you just want separation, you just want the ethno states, but you know what, as Psycho pointed out, there is an equality between the races. No one race is superior to another race.
Well, there is no such thing as equality in nature. The idea that two races would converge toward equal measures on anything is absolutely contradictory to randomness and to the theory of evolution. Of course, the squirrels are better at climbing trees than the snails. They are faster at it. And in the same way, black people are better on some measures, white people are better on some other measures, and Asians are better on some other measures. So any one measure that you find, it's very unlikely that you will find equality, and therefore we are deeply unequal and different. But different doesn't mean that you have moral superiority. is the squirrel morally superior to the snail? No, it's just two life forms that found a way to survive in the way they are. And that's how I see white and black people. We are two life forms. We have separate evolutionary histories that make us different. That's not a reason to annihilate all of the life forms except your own. It's not a reason to be superior to the other or dominate the other or determine what they do. What I'm for is finding a solution on planet Earth where each of these life forms can maintain their own presence in the world and live under the best conditions for themselves. But if we were to think about a perfect world for squirrels and a perfect world for snails, it would be two different worlds. That's why we need two different states and two different countries, so that one of us doesn't oppress the other.
But Jeff, I think you may have misunderstood my question. I'm not talking about from biological standard, from a phenotype to selective pressures, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously, a black person is going to be more resistant to the sun than I'm going to be resistant, right? So if that's a selective pressure, then yes, there are biological differences in that regard. I'm not asking about that. I'm talking about equal under the eyes of the law and to society as a whole. I mean, we're not talking about equal, some kind of equal when it comes to selective pressures. Clearly, phenotypes are going to be different, and if you have a phenotype that's going to be better to meet a certain condition environmentally, oh yeah, perfect, we get that, but I'm talking about equality under the eyes of basically society and the law more than anything else.
Well, there's two elements to your question. One is descriptive and one is prescriptive. So descriptive, it's the state of the world currently. Are we equal under the law? Well, no, because we are so different on so many measures that any given law will be punishing more of a race than others. Take, for example, the drug laws. They end up getting a lot of black people in prison in the U.S. I'm against them. I'm a libertarian, so I think that people should be able to smoke drugs. But the fact is that these laws have been having an asymmetric effect. So any one law will actually punish more of a certain race than other, unless the two races are equal on that criminal trait. So I will say that's the descriptive aspect. No, we are not equal under current law in the nations we live in. Now, what I desire would be, yes, that we were equal under the law. In fact, that we would have each our different set of laws. Personally, I'm for separation and segregation such that I will never have to live under a law voted by a single black person. And what I would want is the same liberty for black people. I would want them to have countries where none of my votes or laws or constitutions that I write would ever affect them.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with that, but Psycho, I think the thing is that these laws are just unjust, right? The drug laws has nothing to do with the fact that there's inequality in the law. I think a lot of these laws weren't written to get black people in jail more often than white. I think there's something to be said about, especially with the marijuana thing. There's clearly that some of these laws were racist. I cannot argue against that, but that's just a bad law, right? I mean, do you agree, Psycho, that yes, we have bad laws, but if these laws were written properly, then there should be equality in the law?
If they was written properly, if they wasn't aimed to target specific groups of people, then yeah, that would be the case. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We definitely do have evidence to point to what you were stating about the drug laws being targeted towards black people. Richard Nixon's administration has been, people from his administration has been quoted as such. The war on drugs, aka the war on black people, has been going on for a long time. You can date back to when what was that, the 1950s, when they had this whole marijuana hysteria, when they used to talk about how weed makes you want to rape white women and cause hallucinations and all types of other stuff. And look at us now. Now weed is about to be a recreational legalized drug in this country within the next, I'll say, less than 10 years. So we already got cigarette businesses pulling out of the cigarette business and going into the marijuana business right now as we speak, because they know what's about to happen. So, these whole things have been put in place for quite some time. And it's real, now they trying to lighten up on the drug laws, because now the drug laws have seeped outside of the inner cities, and now they are all in the suburbs. You got this opioid epidemic that's destroying white communities and everything else, and now all of a sudden they want to be easy on drugs. Now they want to make all these easy drug laws. Now they want to peel back and everything, because they're not doing this for black people. They're doing this because the drugs wasn't contained in the isolated areas they wanted to be contained in. Now it done spilled over, so now they're trying to change the laws. But